Post-installation validation and configuration. In this nugget, we're going to look at how to verify what happened during the installation process. And we're also going to learn how to configure various hardware and system services once the system is up and running. So let's get to work. All right, well, let's start just by talking about some post-installation procedures here. One, to validate that everything in the installation went correctly, and see what software was installed, that sort of stuff. Find out where that information is kept on the system about what software was installed, if there were errors on boot time, things like that. And then we'll move on and talk about post-installation configuration. So the first thing I want to do here is just become the super user so that I can look at some of these files. And the first thing that I want to do with you is look at the install log. Okay, so this is the installation log about what software was installed on your system. It's either in the /temp directory or it's in the /root directory, the root user's home directory, and it's called install.log. Okay, so we're just going to look at this with the more command and look at a page at a time. And you can see the first part up here, it says installing 653 packages, and then it goes on to name the various packages that were installed on the system. Okay, now these packages that were installed in the system, basically you chose what to install on the system when you did the installation. Now you didn't choose, every package of the 653 packages. You said things like, okay, I want these developer tools, or I want these graphical tools, or I want these games, or I want these office tools, or whatever. And then, the system went ahead and installed all the various packages that you needed to get that stuff. Okay, so if you just go through this, page by page with the space bar, you go down line by line with the enter key, you can see, there's just tons and tons of files in here. There's files in here that, you didn't even necessarily choose. They were just a package that came with some, general set of packages, like I said, developer tools or system monitoring tools or whatever. One of these packages is Kudzu, okay, or Kudzu or something. I don't know exactly how people say that. But Kudzu is a hardware identification package. So when you go to plug in new hardware to your system, if Kudzu is running, do that. And you know, most of the detail in there is not necessarily important in your day-to-day operation, but when you do have to look at this and debug something and try to figure out what's going wrong, then it's nice to know what each of these things in the file is representing, and this article will tell you that. Okay, now let's look at a tool that you can use for post-installation configuration. Okay, so the reason you would use this is if there's something that you added to your system after you installed Linux, like you added new hardware, you changed out hardware, like you swapped your keyboard with a new keyboard, and now things aren't working correctly, so you have to go back and reconfigure the keyboard because it's just a different keyboard or something like that. Okay, so what you can use is this program in user bin called Setup. And this is just a text-based program, and it goes through and gives you the ability to configure the various stuff that you configured during installation time. Now, some of the things during installation time we really didn't talk about, like authentication configuration. If we go in there, it's talking about, do you want to use NIS or LDEP or Hesiod or whatever, Hesiod. These things we didn't talk about during installation time. We'll talk about what these things are later in the video series. So for now, we'll just go to cancel, but this is how you would go about and configure that stuff if you didn't do it during installation time and now you want to do it. And we'll do that later in the series when we actually talk about this authentication programs that are out there. Okay, so let's just go back to the main user bin setup window here. And one thing here is a firewall configuration. During installation, basically you had your choice of saying, do you want a high security firewall, medium security, or no firewall at all, or do you want to customize things? Again, we're going to talk about firewall security and stuff later in the video series, and we'll talk about how you would customize a firewall to do what you want. For now, I'm just going to leave it set as a high security firewall, okay, and go back. Now, things like keyboard configuration, we did talk a little bit about that. We did choose that during installation time. We did most of this stuff back in the introductory series. In this video series, we've mostly concentrated on more advanced issues, but back in the introductory series, you know, we went through command so you can see the boot messages. And this isn't just for right after installation. This is really for any time that you discover some sort of error in your system and you want to see if there was any indication of that error the last time the system booted up. Then you can use the dmessage command or look at the file /var/log/dmessage to check out what happened at boot time. Then we talked about configuration. The user bin setup command gave us that menu so we could set up time zones and keyboard, our mouse, the network settings, firewall settings, things like that were all capable of being set up with user bin setup. And then we looked at Red Hat config network, Red Hat config services, and there's a whole bunch of these things that start with Red Hat config, and you can play around, type Red Hat config hyphen, and then hit tab twice, and it'll show you all the different commands that start with Red Hat config. Okay? Well, I hope you found this nugget informative, and thanks for viewing.